Sisters and brothers and comrades, I don't know how many of you watched Biden's inaugural speech this morning, but he's already very high in the opinion polls and he's going to go higher. And the gist of his speech, what he's been saying for the last 6 months, is national unity and love thy neighbor. And the fact that he's going to go higher in the opinion polls, I believe, means that overt, open fascism is going, I think, may well go on the retreat for a little while. But we're not fooled. We know that it's not going to go away, just as it never has in this country. And therefore, especially, and it will break out more in the open as a public force at some point in the future. And therefore, especially at this juncture, we have to start by an understanding of its history and seeing and opposing it in its global context, not just here in this one country. That means we have to start with perspectives. And one of the greatest dangers of fascism is so-called left or anti-capitalist fascism, which in the United States you can see going all the way back over 100 years to Tom Watson, who flipped from, in Georgia, who flipped from being a left populist to a fascist and racist in that state. Of course, the best known example of left or anti-capitalist fascism, and I use that in quotes, is Gregor Strasser, who built the left wing, in quotes, of the Nazi Party in Germany. And he played an absolutely essential role in building a mass base amongst small shopkeepers and also workers. Without him, the Nazis, and his role, the Nazis never would have achieved the power that it did. Of course, Hitler, when he didn't need him anymore, disposed of him. And in the US today, you have the examples, and I never thought I would live to see the day of a US senator who would accurately be labeled as a fascist, but that's who Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, that's what he is. And it's interesting that he attacks the oligarchy. He talked at one point about protecting all jobs and the need to, quote, crack down on crisis profiteering by Wall Street. Words that could have come straight out of the mouth of Bernie Sanders. But at the same time, he talks about our national solidarity and attacks globalizing and the cosmopolitan agenda. And anybody that is familiar, that term cosmopolitan agenda, that's like a dog whistle for anti-Semitism. Not the what they call anti-Semitism, those of us who oppose the state of Israel, but real fascist anti-Semitism. And Hawley basically calls for a Christian nation. And we should never forget, he was the one that gave that salute to the fascist mob on January 6th. And after they had raided the Capitol, he got up and gave a speech and made a vote in favor of the very ideology that brought that fascist mob together. Internationally, there have been similar figures, and maybe one of the most prominent is Alexander Dugin in Russia, who makes the same speeches for so-called multilateralism and all this kind of stuff. Really, it's just he's brought together all the fascist forces throughout Europe and even in the United States. Now, in addition to understanding this history of fascism, and in particular so-called left fascism, we also have to see it as a global phenomenon. And we cannot oppose fascism at home while defending or closing our eyes to it abroad. The foremost example, of course, is the Zionists, who denounce anti-Semitic fascism here at home while they support the fascist settlers in the occupied territories in the West Bank. But we have to admit, comrades, that we on the left are not immune to the similar type of thing, that similar criticism has to be made of some of ourselves. We must never allow our opposition to U.S. imperialism to blind us to those who, or ignore those who use fascist methods there in their own countries. We have to always stand on the side of the working class, no matter where. And yes, comrades, I am referring to Syria, where Assad, if he is not an outright fascist, he certainly employs all the methods of fascism: mass torture, mass rape, mass murder, as well as mass terrorism of the entire population. No, he is not an anti-imperialist. He and his father have a long history of collaborating with both the United States and Israel, and now they rest entirely on the support of Russian imperialism. And it's no accident that every single fascist group in the world, including the United States, supports Assad. So there's some key lessons that we have to draw from this. First of all, we have to be absolutely clear and explicit on the class question. It's not a matter of the elite or the aristocracy, and certainly not the political class versus the producers or the common man, and usually it's the common man, not the common woman. Those are all terms that the fascists use, the left fascists. It's a question of the capitalist class against the working class. And just as Trotsky did in opposing imperialism, we must always stand on the side of the working class. Never see the workers anywhere in the world as just pawns in the game. And never encourage illusions in the so-called national capitalist class. We have to oppose the idea of the common interests of the capitalist class and the working class, whether those ideas come from the fascists or they come from the liberals like Biden, or we have to say they also come from our very own union leaders from the top to the bottom. We always have to start from the point of view of the experiences and the interests of the working class and stand for the independent role and the independent organizing of the working class. So all power to the working class, down with capitalism, and the future is socialism.